Alrighty, you guys. This is going to be my first actual video besides my introduction video. So what I really wanted to start my channel on was going to be books. I actually really love to read books, and I kind of want to inspire other people who might not be so into reading to maybe give it a shot, and try reading. Reading's not that bad, and it really helps me kind of get away from reality and into these other stories. I'm actually gonna start my first book review with a book I hate. I know it sounds funny, but I really don't like this book. But my next book review will hopefully be on a better book. I'm actually in the midst of reading it. It is 11/22/63, which is the day that JFK was shot. It's a really good book so far. I'm about 200 pages into it, and I'm thinking about doing chapter reviews. So I'm on like chapter 7 right now, and I'm thinking of breaking down the books maybe in like from chapter 1 to 10, kind of giving a summary over it. That way I'm kind of putting out more content, because this book is like over 1,000 pages long, and I don't know exactly when I'm going to finish it. And I kind of want to give summaries of the books just in case anybody kind of doesn't have the time to read them and possibly wants to know chapter by chapter what's happening, because it's a really good book so far, and I love Stephen King and his writing. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if you guys want to do that. I'll probably end up doing it anyway, but let me know if you guys are interested. Back to the main book that we're going to be focusing on today is All Things Cease to Appear. I actually bought like a bunch of books along with this book. I really liked it for the cover. It sounds really fucking ridiculous, but I thought this cover was really cool at first. I read like the little summary of the story in here. I thought it would be pretty interesting at first, but in the end it was really bad, and I'm going to kind of go over today start to finish how this book kind of plays out and why I particularly didn't like Elizabeth Brundage's writing. I haven't read this book, by the way, and like I haven't read it in a year. I finished it about a year ago, so if some of my details are a little off, just expect that, because this book took me about a year to finish because it's so painfully boring to read. It opens up with a little story about Cal and Ella living in the farmhouse in Chosin, New York, which is in upstate New York. It's a little farmhouse, nothing too much, Pretty much, Cal, who is the husband, he's an abuser, and he was beating on his wife Ella, and it kind of drove Ella insane. So Ella ends up pretty much killing him and herself, which in turn leads to their 3 kids forced to go live with another distant relative. After they live with their relative, they go back to their old house to find that George and Catherine, who are in turn the new main characters of the story, they pretty much end up owning the house now, since the kids weren't old enough to afford it. Pretty much what happens after that is George ends up working in New York, and he ends up trying to raise their kid Franny in a small apartment, but that ends up not working. So they go back to Chosin into that farmhouse, and the kids end up working around the house for George and Catherine. It's pretty boring. After that, George ends up cheating on Catherine with a 19-year-old girl, and George is in his like 40s. He's cheating with the inn kind of clerk lady. After that, George is really controlling of Catherine, where she goes, who she talks to, what she does. And it kind of drives him like insane, which sounds ironic, how can somebody who is that controlling of their wife be insane, or go insane. Pretty much what ends up happening from that point is working as a school teacher, and he ends up taking one of his like supervisors, and he drowns him out on the lake. And then he ends up running somebody else off the road who was kind of like flirting with his wife, and he ended up killing both of them. Pretty much he was going insane at this point, and Catherine was too. And George ended up actually killing his wife, although there was no evidence to prove like any of the killings. So everything looked like it was an accident to the police department, which kind of seems stupid because there was nobody else with motive who would actually want to kill his wife, you know? Especially if he's that in control of her, who's going to be able to touch her, you know? Who's going to be able to get close enough to kill her? Nobody. Pretty much what ends up happening after that is George pretty much just gets old and he gets diabetes, goes blind, and he ends up dying in the future, which is kind of like a lackluster ending if you ask me, you know? How is he going to commit 3 murders and die of old age? It's like, that's stupid. He should have at least like gone out in style or something, you know? But yeah, in the end of the book too, after George dies, Franny, who is their kid, ends up marrying one of their 3 sons that originally lived in the farmhouse, and they get married and whatnot. And yeah, it was overall a really boring book. It's a really boring book if you couldn't tell. Pretty much the main reason why I don't like this book is because the progress of it goes really slow. It's like most novels, like especially with this book, if you haven't read it, it's pretty much like a time travel book, you know, where you're going back in time. It's really fast paced, you know, you're trying to keep up with it all, and it really keeps your interest and whatnot. However, in this book, you know all the characters, and you're really praying that there would be some advancement in the story, but there's not. It's like, come on. And another thing that I really hated about Elizabeth's writing in this book was the way that she would try and make the characters talk. In most novels, they'll have how a character will talk and it will say at the end of the line, who said that line? Correct. But in this book, the way Elizabeth writes, she won't say who's saying the line. She'll make a whole paragraph and she won't put quotation marks either. So the first line might be George saying it, the second line might be the boys, the third line might be the boys again, and the fourth line might be George. However, she won't put quotation marks through any of that. And she won't specify who's saying what. That's what took me so long about like spending a year going through this book, because I would have to analyze who's saying what in those paragraphs. And sometimes when she would use quotation marks, she would never end them. So you're trying to figure out where does their thought come in and when does their actual voice end, if that makes sense. It was a really challenging book to finish. And the ending really wasn't that good either. In most books, you have the kind of beginning stages of the book, then you have build up to the climax, then it kind of goes down from the climax, and then normally you have a really good finish. But in this book, it's pretty much a lot of build up, and then you have the climax, but it's kind of just like a falling roller coaster after that point, and never comes back up. It was just a really lackluster ending of a book. Some of the other books I've read, like Christine by Stephen King, I'm a huge Stephen King fan, if you guys couldn't tell, by the way. His books are really good in his writing style. He pretty much does everything that Elizabeth doesn't do, which is a plus. I mean, overall, if I had to give this novel like a rating out of 1 out of 10, I'd probably give it a 2. It was really a boring story. I believe the book is about 400 pages long. Yeah, pretty much about 400 pages long. And it took me a year just to decipher what she was trying to say. And I'm pretty sure these comments on the back are all fake. I don't think these people actually read the fucking book. Because they said, Brundage's brilliant new novel is as terrifying, unsettling, and as beautiful as cracking ice over a raging river. That's not fucking true. If they read the first like 300 pages of the book, which is the whole setup where I was telling you that the kids come to George to work on his farm, that's literally fucking 300 pages of this book. It's not that exciting. I mean, I'm sure there's more people out there that actually have better stories in their life than this book. I really wouldn't suggest this book. I thought the cover was cool. I would suggest finding something that you're more really interested in, and finding an author that has a lot of reputation behind them, that is well respected and knows how to really write. I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned from this, was sticking to what I really like. But I also don't think it's bad to go out of your comfort zone every once in a while, you know? I mean, I learned a new lesson. I don't like her books. Maybe some of you do, and that's perfectly fine with me, you know? If you do like her writing, it's just my opinion. That's pretty much it for this book review. Stay tuned for the Stephen King book. I have a lot of stuff to say about this book. I really am loving this. I'm about 200 pages in already, and I've only spent 2 days reading it. So look forward to when I probably hit chapter 10. I'll make my book review because I'm on chapter 7 right now. So when I do hit chapter 10, I'll make a chapter 1 through 10 kind of review in case any of you guys are wanting to know a little bit about how this book starts and are wondering my thoughts and opinions on it. Yeah, so far it's really interesting. And I'll show you guys some of the other books that I have that I will review in the upcoming future besides this one. So a few of the books that I bought alongside this All Things Cease to Appear book was Stephanie Callow's Language Arts. It's a really cool cover. That's again why I bought this book, so it might be a flop, kind of like All Things Cease to Appear. But I'm not too sure. It's pretty much about like a linguistics teacher who is trying to rewrite his life, I guess. So it sounds pretty interesting, and I'm looking forward to this one. But this one might wait a little bit because I do have 2 other books ahead of this one. I think my next book after my Stephen King book is probably going to be this one. It's American War, a novel by Omar El Akkad. This one sounded really interesting to me. I'm a really big history fan, and I really think a lot of history books are really cool. So I'm really looking forward to this one. This one looks like it takes place in the future in 2074. So I think this one's going to be a really interesting read. And I'm really looking forward to this one. So after my Stephen King book, you guys could look out for this one. This one's going to be good, I think. That's pretty much it for right now. I do have Fahrenheit 451 that I'm probably going to read after I read The American War. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions. And if you have read All Things Cease to Appear, let me know what you guys thought about it, because I'm interested if there's anyone that actually did like it. Personally, it is just my opinion, so don't hate if you guys thought something else. I'm more than open to see why you guys actually liked the book, and I'm curious if you guys did. Let me know also if you guys want to see maybe Chow, my wife, if I can get her to do some Vietnamese book reviews, because she's been reading a lot of books on Wattpad. Let me know if you guys want to have her on, and maybe if she'll do some book reviews. She could close caption them in Vietnamese, in case there's any Vietnamese viewers out there that want to know about the books that she's reading. I think this is it for this book review. Let me know if there's any other books that you guys want me to review. I could also review Christine. I've read that book before. I've read quite a few other books before. Let me know if there's any books that you guys have suggestions for that I should read too. Alrighty, you guys. Peace out.